Hey guys, how you guys doing?
Oh,
Can you
I'm
hear me?
doing fantastic.
Good.
Hey,
Oh, we hear you. Matt, how you doing?
I'm great. There was a stutter on my end. I was like, we're not live yet. Then it went live 12 seconds ago. So never mind. We're off to a great start. Hi, Mike. I'm great.
Hey, good to hear you guys. So everyone who's in the chat or watching the replay, welcome to episode 5 of Figure Action Reaction. We got a great show tonight with some awesome guests. So let's just go ahead and roll that intro and we'll get right into it.
Because it ain't Thursday, guys. It's Monday. It ain't a figure action. It's
Bring it up, bring it up, bring it, bring it, bring it up.
All right.
I love that intro. I'm so proud of it.
Everyone, welcome to Figure Reaction. So tonight, we kind of have a really special one set up for us because we're talking about something that's not in the mainstream. We have a lot of times with our communities and collecting, we really only have 3 main venues a lot of people remember, especially those in my age group. And that's Hasbro, because they own everything, Mattel for that nostalgia hit from He-Man, and now we have McFarlane helping us out with our DC collections. But what I've been seeing, and I hope you guys can add into this, is that we've seen a bigger influx of independent companies bringing out a lot of really amazing stuff. And we've seen them coming through with different ways, whether they're self-funded or they're through crowdfunding endeavors. And some examples we've seen over the past 2 years is Spiro Toys with Animal Wars of the Kingdom, Bobby Val with Valaverse. And now, we're going to hopefully talk about the next funded Kickstarter. And that is going to be with our guest tonight from MetaTravelers. So instead of me just talking about them real quick, let's just roll a quick video to get this party started.
We've dedicated more than 2.5 years to craft an intricate backstory. Design characters that come alive. Worked hand in hand with world-class storytellers and shared one goal: to breathe life into a brand new line of action figures. Overflowing with ideas, we embarked on what's been this incredible journey to take our storytelling to a whole new level. What is Legendari? Legendari is our groundbreaking series of fully articulated physical action figures, designed in collaboration with the creators of Guardians of the Galaxy and engineered by renowned toy makers Four Horsemen Studios.
I'm throwing money at my computer. There's no figures landing in my hand.
How's it going, everyone?
All right, guys. There we go.
Hey, everybody.
So, Jeremy, Marko, welcome to Figure Reaction, and thanks so much for joining us tonight to talk about Legendari.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for having us. Yeah, and thank you for putting together that compilation video. That was very, very cool. So that's fun to see.
Yeah, great
Wasn't
song
expecting that.
selection too. In a very epic introduction.
For a nominal fee, he'll give you the rights.
All right.
So, how are you guys doing? I mean, are you excited about where you guys are in regards to the Kickstarter?
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. You know, we're not even Actually, we're right at the halfway mark. We had, or maybe a little bit past the halfway mark on our campaign, and we're just at around 85% funding right now. So we're right around the corner from, getting funded. We've had, a lot of amazing feedback from, so many people and, backers, and it's just been a really exciting kind of beginning to this, journey. That's been, yeah, it's been a blast. Obviously a ton of work and kind of stuff kind of building over the last year, and so kind of having a chance to bring it to the world, and yeah, it's just been a lot of fun.
Great. Well, I mean, again, amazing success so far, and just seeing the excitement and actually the word of mouth that's been going around about your Kickstarter and the products that you're showing. It's a natural excitement that I think is really indicative of the work that you guys have put into this. And it's not just something that you kind of put on a whim. This is something that you've been developing over years. So it's really cool. And hopefully tonight we can learn a little more about it from you guys.
Definitely.
So,
yeah. Excited.
All right. Well, hopefully I'm not going to cover one with Death by PowerPoint, but I think it's a little easier to start things out with. So let me see if, oops, that's not the one. I got to get it going. So in the meantime, oops.
So this,
You guys want to start anything?
Let's say, like Mike was saying, the Kickstarter is doing absolutely amazing. I mean, right now you're currently at $105,694, and probably a little more by the end of this show, because I know I'm just waiting for that paycheck to hit that button. I mean, you still got 20 days to go, people. But
Absolutely.
Here's the thing that astounds me. It's 391 backers. So that means your average person of these 391 is getting $270 worth of product from you guys.
Yeah, we were actually just having that conversation. A lot of people who have been supporting have been, coming in and, kind of immersing themselves and wanting to grab, a bunch of different figures. So it's really awesome to see, and I think that what's really good around that as well is.
Sorry about that.
Sorry,
no worries, no worries. We've seen kind of projects, in this space, do 1,000+ backers. And so, obviously if we were to get to those numbers, we'll blow past, all of our different goals and things like that. But, the community that we have is extremely strong and really passionate. And so, yeah, that's really awesome to kind of see people, like I said, really. And I think, Mike, you mentioned at the beginning of just kind of, new, indie toy makers and people kind of wanting to immerse themselves into, new story worlds. And obviously there's always going to be the love and affection that we have for, the IP that we grew up with, and, different other, whether it's DC, Marvel, or, Star Wars, or kind of, those big monster behemoth IPs. But it's also nice, people really kind of embracing, the indie toy scene, and, we're kind of just so happy and to be a part of that. And, yeah, it's been, like I said, been a lot of fun to kind of craft these stories and create these figures, pretty much creating the figures in some sense or another. We began sculpting, the first kind of versions of these characters, 2 years ago. So they've definitely kind of been honed and, tweaked, and, kind of, we continue to kind of expand upon them and build upon like the designs of these characters. But yeah, it's been, an interesting road to get here, and we're just kind of, this is really the beginning of this story world, and so we have a lot more in our brains that we want to kind of share with everyone, but this is the first collection. So yeah,
great. And that's, I think, part of the excitement is that being able to get into something from the beginning. And that's through this Kickstarter, and learning more about this line and this world that you guys have been building. That helps create something that I personally haven't felt in a while with collecting. And I've gotten back into adult collecting during the pandemic. And then that's only part of the fun I've had. The other part is joining a community of fellow collectors, meeting great guys like you and Dave and Matt and a whole bunch of others, and going to these conventions and actually feeling the passion. It's sometimes it's just palpable, and I'm sure we're going to have that same type of emotion and that same reaction when this campaign's funded.
And that's
So
to go to your point real quick, Mike. That's what really you got me thinking about too. Is that how many figure lines are out there that are now several years deep, that have all of these great figures to them, that you get in on late to the game, you get excited about it after the fact. Maybe you start collecting later in life and you don't realize that they're a thing, and you get in and you're like, oh, very excited about these figures. Let me go grab the ones that came out first, and that crap's going for like $3,000 on eBay, and you're like, that's ridiculous. And you're right. Now this is a ground floor kind of thing on something that we can all be excited about together, and be there for the entry level, for the figures, for these guys that are excited about it, for everybody to get in. I'm not really asking a question. I'm just excited and saying things out loud. So,
and I have no idea what you're talking about with starting something late in the game.
Right. Right.
Yes. Well then, guys, if you want, we're without going too far, because I know Dave has one particular question he wants to ask you guys from the beginning. Mm-hmm. But we can kind of do the 30-second plug of who is MetaTravelers, and then kind of lead into what is Legendari in a nutshell, and then we'll get further into the deep dive on it.
Totally. Jeremy, would you like me to start?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Marko. I'm one of the co-creators. I've been working on the MetaTravelers project here for the past 3 years. We began this journey wanting to kind of create a sci-fi, universe of characters and story. And we began working on some motion comics back in 2021 that kind of introduced this, alien species called the Nibiru. And, had a chance to develop those motion comics with Ant Williams and Andy Lanning, who's probably most famous for his work with Guardians of the Galaxy. So I had a chance to really kind of create this, new story world. And, we had a chance to do some really cool digital kind of stuff at that time, and digital collections and avatars that you could use and in virtual reality. And then we wanted to really kind of move into the physical collectible space and, kind of create an action figure line. And so about 2 years ago now, we got introduced to Four Horsemen Studios, who are famous for, working with all sorts of other IP, but they've also developed, their two big lines, Mythic Legions and Cosmic Legions, which I'm sure you guys are all aware of. And we had a chance to kind of sit down with them and kind of talk to them about this vision that we had to kind of bring these characters, to life. And so over the past, I'd say 18 months, we have been working hand in hand with them with the engineering, sculpting, and development of this Legendari action figure line, which are based on those same Nibiru kind of alien race characters that we had created from this story world. And so kind of as I was mentioning earlier, this is really kind of the beginning of a story world that we're looking to create with a lot more different species and characters and different kind of planets. And so it's kind of a lot, but this is kind of where what we've been up to the last few years. And I'll let Jeremy introduce himself as well.
Yeah, I'm the other co-founder of MetaTravelers, and Legendari is our first chance to bring these characters to life in a whole new way. Physical collectibles, action figures, and doing it kind of at the highest level we're able to, just based on who we're working with, as far as partners go. It's been such an honor and privilege to be able to work with Four Horsemen Studios, to be able to work with Andy Lanning on the story, Ant Williams on some of the comic art, all the things that we've kind of brought together to bring these characters to life, and as you guys were saying, you're excited about the Kickstarter. Obviously we're excited too. There's 15 unique characters in there. And so, a ton of time not only went into the story behind those characters, but all the different details. And obviously we'll get more into it as we go on through this podcast. But yeah, there's so much in there.
I like T-Man 978. He just says, I want to see toys. Let's just cut right through all this. And
T-Man is one of the co-hosts for our weekly podcast, Figure Action Podcast, Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we go through a lot of this stuff. And he has his own very successful YouTube channel. He does a lot of really great content, and he loves covering everything. So I think when we start getting these figures in hand, he's going to be really excited for it.
Yes.
So let's just scroll on through here. And you talked about building a world. So let's kind of go into a little bit more. Like, how did getting introduced to Andy and Ant kind of happen? Is that part of the process when you were talking with the Four Horsemen, or?
No, actually. So I knew someone named Liam Sharp who has been an illustrator for DC. He's done Wonder Woman, he's done Batman, he's done all sorts of stuff. And I actually was speaking with him back in 2021, and I had kind of talked to him about this, these characters that we were building and that we really, how we wanted to craft this story, around this Nibiru, alien race. And, he had actually introed me to Andy Lanning, and he said, like, Andy is a brilliant storyteller. And I think this, kind of creating, a whole new story world would be right up his alley. And so, he had kind of made that connection. And Andy and I had a chance to speak, like I said, I think, 2 years ago. And he's the one who actually introduced both Jeremy and I to Ant Williams, who is an illustrator who's worked for both Marvel and DC. Ant's done Deadpool. He's done Superman, Spider-Man. He's done a lot of amazing, work. And so, together, Jeremy and myself, Andy, Ant, we started to kind of craft comic art around the characters, some comics, some motion comics, and started to kind of just develop, that story. And that was really kind of the beginning of the journey. And so, again, we kind of got hooked up through Liam, and then it kind of hit the road, as we kind of pitched, this idea of this world. And at that time, I'd even pitched him a lot more characters, and he's like, okay, where are we starting, right? You can't we can't start off with a crossover event with all these things. Where is kind of our beginning point? And I said, we wanted to start with this, these characters, and so we've been crafting that story world. And the Legendari action figures, there's an event that happens in our original motion comic that is kind of also where these characters kind of come into play, that we have a lot more kind of from the lore and story side that we haven't necessarily shown to everyone yet. We actually have a lot more lore on each figure and their backgrounds and things like that. And we want to continue kind of building out the story as we move forward past the Kickstarter and all that. So we'll definitely be updating our site and other places, and where people can kind of like learn more about the characters, learn more, and and then hopefully be able to kind of also explain more of the kind of events that brought these characters together.
Great. And again, a lot of this stuff with the motion comics, you have it on your actual YouTube channel, which we'll put into the description for the rewatch. And I do want to say thank you for combining the episodes into parts and just having that as a mini binge watching session. I found out really enjoyable, and it's a lot of really cool like visuals and just the whole idea of the story. And again, as you said, without any spoilers, the end of that mini comic really does kind of lead in, I hope, to get more information into the line as we go along here through the campaign, and afterwards when we start having the figures in hand. It's just really cool. And so when you guys were working with Andy, like how was the collaboration portion going? I mean, like, to me, to have an idea in my head and I try to start going, I start rambling, I start going all over the place, and I would lose focus, especially if I was with someone who created worlds for profession. So I don't know if you've had experience with that before, or how was that process for you guys?
I said this to Jeremy when I was talking, because I was talking about this same kind of thing, and feeling like that crazy guy with the corkboard behind him that has the red string connecting all the characters, and I'm trying to kind of explain this idea of this story world and what we were looking to do. Andy's been absolutely amazing to work with, and he's just a very down to earth guy. So the creative process has been very fun. I think our first conversation that Jeremy and I had, with Andy, kind of just, kind of really just more explaining, maybe what the big vision is around, really creating, we didn't want to just create a single character or characters, or, we really had an idea for like a long-term approach of building out a series of characters and worlds. And, it was something that, when we pitched to him, obviously not really sure how things will be received. And, he was, kind of, not like it was so dramatic that there was like this long pause on the other end, but, he said, I think this is absolutely, really exciting. And I think that you guys, I can tell you're passionate about, what you're trying to build. And, I think this would be a lot of fun. At the end of the day, I think this would be a lot of fun for me to kind of hop in and help you guys design this world and these characters. And, I think that's right when, we kind of talked about, how we wanted to do that, whether it be through a traditional, a digital comic, a physical comic, motion comics. And, we ended up doing, the motion comics, but we also did, we did do a limited run of the physical comic. So I do have some physicals as well that basically is like 8 episodes of the motion comics that you saw that's on our YouTube. Like this first physical, sorry, my screen is kind of, this first physical comic is, essentially those first 6 or 8 episodes. I can't remember if it was 6 or 8 episodes kind of in a physical form. Yeah, but I think overall it's been just a treat, working with him and being able to kind of, share this vision and, also be able to work with someone of his caliber who, obviously has been working, with the MCU and building out, the characters that, we love. And so having a chance to work with someone like that and have him kind of help guide, what our vision is. And also, I think one of the things that we said at the very beginning is, we wanted it to be a true collaboration. And so like really kind of letting him go with, we had kind of broad brush strokes of how we wanted some of these characters, but I think, he obviously, adds a lot to, his own creativity, right, to the worlds and the story. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I think. Jeremy,
just being able to imagine your own world from top to bottom and come up with characters and storylines and plot threads and just not being beholden to 30 years of backstory or what the person before you did and having to take things in any direction you want to. I mean, that sounds to me like it's both daunting and exciting. Would you say
exactly that is exactly how to
Okay.
Yeah, it can be. Andy and his team, they're so collaborative though. And, whenever we come up with an idea, he can just spin off, multiple different stories just from that one idea. And so really we're kind of like steering the ship together, and, he writes a lot of awesome story. And if there's stuff we want to either remix or create new stories off of, there's kind of that freedom and play. And so, yeah, it's
so you guys are feeding stories, you're feeding ideas into a story machine. Is really what's
exactly.
happening.
Yeah. And like
and then just see what spits out on the other end.
He says, I put it all into my hopper, and then, it gets the wheels turning, and then he,
you guys are using the true AI of actual intelligence to craft the story. Feel free to
So one kind of final question going into this, because building the world, and you just said you had all these characters. Did you guys come with like a character Bible to Andy and say, here's kind of where we have our thoughts right now, do with it as you will? Or was it kind of building, as you said, through this collaborative endeavor? I mean, and how thick is that Bible now?
We had vision boards for actually a few different species / guilds. And the Nibiru was just one of those. And so obviously at the time we didn't have kind of like the time to build out all 3 at once, which is what we wanted to. So we had to pick one, right? And so then we ended up going with the Nibiru and worked with Andy to kind of create the overarching narrative. And you mentioned the concept of a Bible, and he basically worked with us to create kind of like an IP Bible for the Nibiru homeworld, their universe, and then also kind of like the overarching universe that all of the MetaTravelers will fit into kind of down the road, right? And then that overarching theme and those rules that govern that universe basically help dictate any decisions, whether it's like style decisions or character design, story, all of that stuff. So yeah, he helped us kind of create, like you said, that overarching Bible. And obviously over the whole process, we continue to expand, even those old documents, we'll revisit them, pull some things. Our original Nibiru characters, we had designed over I don't know, over 100 different accessories or equipables or different traits for them. And so we had a lot to pull from when it came down to the 15th. So the 15 characters in Legendari. And so we kind of picked apart that collection and remixed it and made it even better too, enhancing a lot of the weapons or remixing them, combining them, coming up with new styles. And yeah, there's definitely like when you ask, what does it take to build a world? Obviously a ton, but where does it start? You know, it started kind of with that core concept and just snowballed from there.
That's amazing. And one thing I did kind of pick up as you were talking was there are 3 kind of different races. So now I'm anticipating, I want to know what wave 2 is, and you know, what else can we see? And so that's really a cool thing about building this, like you said, building the world. And as Matt commented, like kind of having that ability and control and freedom to kind of go wherever you kind of wake up on the side of the bed and say, hey, I have this really great idea. And kind of close out on this and going back into your experiences and your professions leading up to this. Was it an easier decision to say, hey, we have experience in digital and technological presenting and stuff? Was that an easy way to kind of say, hey, digital's the way to go because it's flexible, it's available to anyone, it gives you that ability to kind of pivot as you need to as these ideas start coming into play? Was that kind of helping?
Yeah, so the motion comics, Andy and his team already had kind of a dedicated motion comics team that could do that. And then on our side of the team, we already had an experienced team who does, 3D modeling, rendering, etc. And so, we wanted to kind of explore both sides, see what people love, see what, ends up, being fun for us as well, right? Because I feel like when it's fun for the creator, then that kind of like shines through the product, right? The final product.
Was that sort of where the augmented reality and the digital files for the characters came into play? I know that's part of the Kickstarter.
Totally, yeah. We have those stretch goals, and our kind of vision for that is, well, we have all these characters sculpted anyways, right? We're going to have to sculpt them and articulate them for the physicals. How can we get even more out of those sculpts or bring those characters to life even further, whether it's through like cinematics, short films, even rendered action poses, things like that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think just kind of adding on to that too is what's really cool is like building out this project in the way we did. We've, built it for the digital and the physical space. So what's really interesting and part of kind of those deeper stretch goals around the augmented reality is kind of like a new storytelling experience. And so it kind of opens the door to, being able to do things like, you scan your action figure with your phone and then like, that character comes to life in the digital form. And maybe, you're hearing the backstory and the lore kind of read to you through just like kind of a new space rather than, reading the back of the box. How can we take the kind of, I guess, the world of action figures into like a new kind of era and using, technology to kind of, I guess, enhance the collector's experience. And so there's a lot of really cool ways that we've kind of began to prototype some of those different ideas. And, that's something that, it's well after the collection is, funded. It's kind of like in the deeper part of our Kickstarter, but it's something that I think that would be really cool and that I've never really seen, that it doesn't really exist out there. So it's trying to bring something novel to the space as well as bringing, customizable high-end sculpts and customizability, the things that people are already either accustomed to or, are kind of looking for. And so how can we take, do those things, but also, kind of introduce people into, this other, other aspects that could be, really cool for collectors.
Yeah. And tying it all back into Legendari, for the avid action figure collector, the traditional action figure collector, this is still very much action figure first, physical action figure first. And so that's why we kind of made all the unlockables for the action figures. We put those up front because we want to make sure that we're serving that collector community first. And then as far as the digital side of things, we want that to be a bonus or something we can offer kind of on top of the action figures.
Okay. And that works out absolutely perfect in regards, because I'm one of those collectors that if you tell me what's going up front, and I know that to get in, I want to back it. I have an idea of, all right, if we can get to this goal and I can help that along, that's what I want. And that's really what's really cool about this campaign. And I know, Matt, we were talking before, there was one thing that you talked about in regards to the figures that you definitely.
Oh, my hard-hitting question. I'm ready for it. I'm going to get to the meat of it. Okay. So you guys, we've lobbed softballs at you up until this point, but I need to know something. And that's, why did you put the coolest, in my opinion, the coolest looking character as the 6th stretch goal in your campaign? Because that's the one I want, y'all. You're gonna give me a heart attack here. I want this thing to fund double over so I can get it.
Matt, now you have to tell everybody to buy it so you can get what you want. So you need to tell everyone.
That's why they're here.
You know what? It was really difficult to actually pick which characters would be right, kind of right in the original, I guess, offering of the collection, and then how we'd want to structure stretch goals. And I think, for us, it's like choosing, I guess, the first 8 figures. We all have, I guess, different. As someone asked me, like, what's your favorite figure? And I know people are like, oh, it's like choosing a child, like I love them all. So we had to figure out, what to choose, but also we did it strategically too on, as we unlock more molds and we're able to kind of bring in, more pieces and parts to, the collection, it allows us to kind of unlock, other characters. So if you notice the character you're talking about, that from a mold standpoint, from a design standpoint, is completely like those wings, the weapons, accessories, every single one of those things is a brand new kind of design that obviously isn't used anywhere in the collection. So we have that towards the back end of the collection, just because as we build upon the fundraise goals, it allows us to kind of open up more characters and more things. But we feel really confident. We've got a lot of interest, both in the Kickstarter and outside the Kickstarter. So we feel pretty confident that we're going to unlock everything. So Matt, don't worry, we will get you the eternal card.
So
stay tuned.
That's a good answer. So I'm going to accept that answer. Okay. So, yeah, like you said, we're talking about the Eternal Guard figure, just so you guys know.
Oh yeah.
I also want to mention, though, that I preface by saying that's my favorite figure. That we'll get into the designs here, but there's so many different designs and variations and things that's just because he's my favorite figure. I'm sure y'all have stuff that you're looking forward to that are different than that, but it's just number 6, man. Y'all going to keep me in suspense.
Just keep clicking refresh.
Yeah, this came in from TM Reviews. He's another action figure reviewer that we work with on Figure Action. Do you guys have to purchase and own the mold for production, or so do you guys own this stuff, or since other people help with the design, I guess,
Yeah. So
when it's all said and done, 5 years from now, is that mold going to be sitting on your office?
Yeah, so this is all totally our original IP. So we will own the molds, we'll own all of that. Part of the process that we've been in and what you guys have seen up to this point, and even some of these first prototypes, these are the first prototypes that we've created. We've gone through the paint masters process, obviously the sculpting, the design, the paints. And so part of what the Kickstarter really is giving us the funding to get the molds and to produce these, at scale. And so, a lot of projects that I've seen or that I've backed, sometimes they're at various different stages. Sometimes they're just at the concept phase, and then, part of their funding goes into, the prototypes and to the paints and the sculpting and the engineering. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to do a lot of that stuff on the front end. And so, kind of getting to this point in the Kickstarter, we have a chance to kind of show you guys, what a finished final product is going to look like, rather than, just concept art. And so, we did that also because, hopefully as we move through the process, it'll speed up our production time as well, to be able to be that far ahead of having all these figures, essentially already articulated and engineered and ready to go. So, You know, it was a little bit of a different approach, you know, kind of doing that. And that's why, you know, I've been wanting to share some of this stuff for months, because we, you know, the Eternal Guard that Matt likes, you know, we probably had that figure sculpted 6 months ago, and I've been dying to share it online, but, you know, just holding off and waiting, you know,
And
to
you
kind of
kept
put
it
it.
from me.
Yeah, I kept it from kept it from everyone, kept it from my friends, you know. So it was so exciting to finally, you know, kind of like, you know, being able to kind of share this with everybody.
Great. And I mean, kind of. Go ahead.
I just one thing I did notice with your molds, and this made me smile so much when I was looking over everything. I noticed you guys took one little inspiration from Masters of the Universe of the feet. How you guys did like the forked feet versus like the boot feet. Just a small thing. I just remembered that from the old.
Yeah, you know,
were they using...
Yeah, the sculptor that we were working with, actually, he had done the concept of that kind of foot, and then as we went through the design, he had completely changed it. And I go, "Why'd you change it? I actually really like that." He goes, "I don't know. I was just kind of playing around with that kind of clawed front foot." And I was like, to me, it felt really unique. And I'm like, switch it back. Let's you know, let's go back with that.
Yeah.
And you know, but you know, these characters too, some of them do have, you know, boots, and then some of them who have the kind of exposed foot, you know, having that. You know, we wanted to make sure too, when we were kind of creating this species, they went through a lot of different designs. Originally, they kind of almost looked more like orcs with just kind of two kind of pronged, you know, chin bones here, and then the design was completely redone where they kind of have the, you know, what we call like an exoskeleton that goes, you know, around the eyes, or down the chin, eyes, and, you know, kind of just try to, you know, obviously, you know, you get inspired by so many different things, but also trying to make something that's unique, you know, that's different, that people haven't seen before. And that's why we kind of moved away from, you know, some of the earlier, like, you know, kind of, I guess, more traditional designs to kind of come up with something that'd be, you know, more original and interesting.
All right.
Also, apparently, I'm now backward 392. Just so you know, so that's Matt. You're not the only one.
Awesome.
There you go.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So I'm glad we kind of went into this route, and I want to thank Team Reviews for kind of asking that question, because as we kind of go along here, you were saying that the designs, you kind of collaborated with Andy and Ant to kind of get the things put together, but the real crux that I'd like to know about is, how does the sausage get made? And that's kind of where I have this little nuggets that you keep giving us here online about the engineering process. Now, again, we know through the Kickstarter and through a conversation here, you guys are you guys are collaborating with the Four Horsemen Studios for the engineering, the design of these physical figures. I mean, how?
Yeah.
How do we get to this point, and then what more will we be seeing as things go on?
Yeah,
we collaborated with them in a lot of ways. Also, some of the sculpting as well. They didn't sculpt the initial sculpt of the Eternal Guard, but they did help kind of sculpt some of the details and all of that. And similar to the process with Andy, you know, we come from the background of character design and storytelling. And so when we took this leap into action figure design, you know, we definitely got a lot of feedback. Hey, you guys are approaching this like character designers. You got to think like action figure designers. And so there's a lot of little things we picked up along the way with Four Horsemen Studios. And that's anywhere from like how the paint application process is going to go, you know, picking colors, and then the back and forth, being able to communicate, you know, from across the country, like picking the exact color that you want it to be, all the way to, you know, what joint selections we're going to make based on the different trade-offs, right? And so a lot, and you have the articulation breakdown here as well. And so, you know, see there, we kind of leaned towards the customizer / pop and swap community, and designs that will kind of lend themselves well for those folks. And, you know, we were really inspired when we first got introduced to Four Horsemen Studios. Just from the beginning, we ended up going out there, flew out for Legion's Con. We happened to be there actually a couple days before. So we got to experience G-Con, which is kind of like their in-house, you know, people come and intern and see everything that they do at the studios. So we got a really deep sense of, you know, their attention to detail, craftsmanship, the level of talent that they have. the people that we'd be working with on various parts of the project, all the way from project management to the paint applications. Even got to see the 3D printers they'd be using, for the initial prototypes. Really got to see it all, right? And so we knew that we were working with the right partners as far as bringing these characters to life in action figure form. And
Wow.
yeah, so from there, we continue to riff. Mark and I work with Andy and his team to come up with story. Those stories then turn into concept renderings, which I think you had pictures of earlier. The concept renderings then go through multiple revisions, different paint selection, and then we end up doing the 3D sculpting. And then they have a very, very specific expertise with the engineering, right? So they know how to articulate them. They know how to make toys that work. They know how to do pop and swap, joints that are sturdy enough that'll give you still the amount of posing that you want to do for action figure photography. So we really leaned on them for a lot of that experience. And that allowed us to kind of really just push forward on the character design aspect of things.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess like a fun fact, when we first initially sat down with Four Horsemen Studios, we had 3 figures that were already sculpted that we kind of presented to them that we wanted to do this action figure line, which was one was the Eternal Guard, which you're seeing here on the screen, or at least the first print of it. The second was the Void Walker, and the third was the Spite Usurper. And those were the 3 figures. And originally we were actually going to do a 3 action figure line. And you can imagine this kind of snowballed out of control because we were having fun. We're like, okay, we're going to do 6 now. And then it was like 9. And then we got to add a couple army builders. And then like before you knew it, we were at 15 figures, where there had to just be a point where you just stop. But like we could have probably kept going. So like it kind of just spiraled into this thing because we were excited and, wanted to really, as kind of this new story world of characters and, wanted to be able to give people a variety of, kind of new figures and designs. And for people who are kind of just hopping into, this story world, letting them know that, what we have planned is, much bigger than just a 3-piece, one-off of a couple figures. And so we really wanted to kind of, present it as a full line, that, also allowed us to kind of tell the story that we wanted to tell. So yeah, it kind of, working with them has been, really, really fun because we've had a lot of, either our concept drawings or designs that we presented to Four Horsemen Studios. And we kind of went back and forth on, how to design certain pieces in a way that is good for customizability. And, it's just an interesting kind of back and forth process. And I think it's been awesome to kind of have their guidance along the way and kind of telling us, hey, this will work really well, or with this design, you might want to tailor the backpack this way so there's more range and motion, and things that you may not think about if you're a character designer or a concept artist. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds, working with really talented concept artists and and sculptors, and then also a team who's been doing action figures for the past 25-30 years. You really you get a lot of different input from different areas, from style, aesthetic, and all sorts of other stuff.
Okay. And that's kind of the way I was hoping to hear a lot of stuff, is like the ability to collaborate. And like you said that the expertise and the knowledge that they have. Some other designs, some other companies, they always say, well, if you haven't gone to a school to learn about how to create a toy, why are you making a toy? And I think that is true to a sense, but you also, by not having that, you allow yourself to think outside the box with a lot of things, and being able to bring your ideas and being able to collaborate. And it sounds like the collaboration process with the Four Horsemen for creating the joints, creating the idea of customization, and creating the way to kind of frame, and like, these are figures that people want to do so many things with, whether it's photography, whether it's just display, or just messing around with them and pulling them apart. That type of stuff you don't really see a lot coming from the main companies. Hasbro is not going to tell you, take your classified figure and pull them apart. Go ahead, why not? Because our stuff won't break at all. But but it comes to the community, and we'll kind of get to that as we go along. Is the community kind of takes what you have, provided them and just runs with it. And that's
Makes
what I
it your
think
own.
is really cool.
Yeah,
and
yeah. I
Yeah,
was
it's
gonna
something
say
that we encourage.
Yeah, and we were just kind of blown away by the customizer community that was at LegionsCon. You know, we got to meet a lot of them and talk to them and see the passion, see what they're doing, all kinds of fun, crazy stuff that they're doing with the action figure lines that are out there. And so we thought, well, you know, our action figures could also be kind of like that blank canvas for someone to do something wild. And we're really excited to see what comes of that as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I see this question on the screen by Ray saying, how much does this story of the Nibiru follow the conspiracy theory of the Nibiru creating man here on Earth? So, which is actually kind of wild. Jeremy and I, when we created this and created the name Nibiru for this collection, we hadn't known about that conspiracy theory or theory. And then after we were creating it and talking about it, and it's kind of interesting, some parallels with, you know, kind of what we're doing in the story, we started reading that because it also got brought to our attention. I was like, whoa, and like Jeremy's like, it's destiny. It's like,
Yeah.
So no, we didn't do that on purpose, but it is interesting how that kind of fell into place, and you know, we learned about it just shortly after kind of, you know, announcing this name of these characters.
Okay. And this kind of goes
Here's
along with what
softball
you were
one.
saying. Oh, is Crimson glow in the dark?
No, so we do have some. Excuse me. We do have some glow in the dark figures. Crimson is not one of them. The Crimson will actually be painted in the similar red that's on the screen here of the Spite. So on a few of the figures, we have, out of all the characters, I think we have currently 10 prototypes that are done. We're currently working on more prototypes right now at the studio. So the Crimson Enforcer is actually a digital render of that character. So that red might be popping a little bit more. And that's what kind of maybe looks like that glow, but it would be compared more to exactly to the figure that you see on the screen. And we're hoping that over the next couple of weeks, as these next prototypes get done, we'll be able to update the Kickstarter as well with the physicals on that as well. But you'll see any image that's on the Kickstarter, it'll say physical prototype. So you can tell, we know that's a figure that's been, you know, designed, printed, and articulated. And some of the other ones are on a digital render that's showing you, you know, what those figures are going to look like. So that might be what he's seeing.
And a lot of some of the benefits here, the way you're doing this, and the method of communication that I've seen is something that the larger companies, I feel like they fail to do. There's a lot of mum's the word when it comes to design elements from larger companies about how things work, why decisions were made the way they were, and what. You go on any message board and you're going to see no shortage of people complaining about this, that, and the other about any action figure line. And how helpful is it that someone can come out like here, or Hasbro's been a little bit better about having PulseCon interviews and having some YouTubers do interviews with their design team, but that's just a late thing. You guys and people like you have come out and said, this is how, and you had the articulation breakdown on the previous slide. Like, this is what to expect. This is why we chose this joint. And like you were saying with your collaboration with Four Horsemen, these are the design elements that we were thinking of. Here's how they were changed, and here's why. That goes so far into making us sometimes hard to please collectors to understand why things are the way they are. So I just, again, I don't have a question with this. I'm just saying that's a really good approach, and we're glad that you're doing it that way.
Thank you. Yeah. I was going to say, thank you for mentioning that. You know, we spent a lot of time trying to be as explicit as possible, because not only do collectors want to know what they're getting, but Kickstarter can also be very, you know, it can be a little convoluted or complex, you know, to see everything, understand the reward tiers, how do the stretch goals unlock, how far along is this project actually? Do they have prototypes? Are they renders, et cetera? So we try to be as explicit as possible to make sure there weren't any kind of like gray areas or things like that that would leave a potential collector in the dark. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think too, what you were saying too, you know, on design choices, there's so many things that kind of go into each design, and when you're choosing things, you know, are you making that decision for aesthetics? Are you making it for articulation? Are you making it for customization and swappability? And, you know, obviously when you're making those choices, certain people have different needs. You know, in photography, you know, they might need certain types of articulation to get the poses that they really like. And, you know, for people who obviously want customization, that they're going to have different stuff. And, one of the things that we really wanted to do, or at least I will speak for myself, is, really wanting, to, make these figures really detailed, but also in a clever way, hiding some of the seams and articulation, just so it really kind of, from an aesthetic point, really, really look strong and look great, there on your shelf, or, and so, yeah, that's a lot of pieces and parts are made, very intentionally, to potentially cover, certain seams. And so that's all kind of done, there's a lot more, thought that goes into so many different parts of creating an action figure that, I think a lot of people might not even, realize, what you kind of, all the different things that you're, deciding between, as you go through the process of each figure and, their accessories and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, because we're guilty of the same thing too on this show where we say, why didn't so and so company just do this? Why didn't they just make this decision? Like, obviously this was the right choice, not what they did. So it's nice to see that, yes, there are reasons. They're not, I imagine not one piece of these figures has ever been an arbitrary decision for you guys. I'll bet everything has been absolutely painstakingly thought through, every last detail.
And that kind of leads into a question I want to have for both you guys is, where was the deciding factor between 1/12 scale, which has kind of been the de facto action figure size, going up to a 7-inch figure, which, we've seen a lot of some of these independent companies, and like you show here on your size comparison chart with Animal Wars of the Kingdom. Where did that kind of decision come into play?
Yeah, I think we really were between the 6 and 7 inch, at first. And I think for us, one, these characters in our story world, they are slightly larger than human, right? So we figured, okay, if the 6 inch is kind of like a standard human, 7 inch, maybe at scale, that would be like a slightly larger creature, or, match kind of the size better there. But also, speaking to Four Horsemen, speaking to some of the other collectors we were, consulting with, they also said, the 7 inch looks really good on a DTOF shelf. It looks great on a collector's shelf, and it will look amazing next to, your lineups of characters.
Especially doing, intricate detail, having that a little bit larger figure. If you really want to go high detailed, it allows you to kind of, showcase that stuff. So that's also, something that, we were deciding between.
Well,
no lies there. I'm looking at my Maestro Union figures right now. They look amazing at that large scale.
Well, and I do have to blame you guys for something, because I never would have gotten my Mythic Legions figures, because I was curious about this, and I was worried about getting into another rabbit hole. But once I started seeing more and more of your process and the figures through the campaign, that's when I started picking these up. So another area of things I got to put somewhere. So thank you, but darn it.
Clear more space. So this has been the thing that everyone says, like, I'm just running, everyone's trying to figure out how to make more space.
Yeah.
Well, yes, Mike. Yes, Mike, I did order the Mask of the Red Death. Thank you for bringing that.
I ordered that today.
So did I.
I ordered that this morning. It's actually funny. I ordered that. That's actually going to be for a customizer piece that I want to do. I love that soft good, and I had an idea for a figure in this line. It's called the Pale King, and I actually had an idea for a custom piece that I called the Crimson Bishop that I really wanted to do. And I'm like, I want to do a custom piece with a bunch of some stuff from our world, and some of the soft goods, and that'll be one of my first custom pieces. I'm excited to kind of hop in the customizer world myself. So getting a bunch of different pieces that I can play around with as we move forward.
Well, all three of your hosts either do live or have lived in Baltimore area. So Edgar Allan Poe fans.
I was getting ready to say I picked up my copy on Saturday, just because I actually live right across the street from an Edgar Allan Poe themed tavern called the Annabelle Lee Tavern. So I definitely want to go over, and I'm glad we're getting them soon. The Four Horsemen is putting some updates saying they've already packaging stuff up, just so I can get over there and get some pictures of the of that figure in the tavern. I'm so excited to actually have that. So speaking of that, and the interest you had in regards to soft goods, some of the things that you guys have said in the Kickstarter is, the premium hard plastics, the variety of materials that you're going to have on these figures, including soft goods. So, being in with it was so much collaboration with the Four Horsemen and a lot of the customizing community. I know there's a lot of really talented customizers that have built their own reputation. A lot of it's worldwide recognition, being customizers for Mythic Legions. So have you, when you're designing the soft goods, are you kind of reaching into that resource that the Four Horsemen have, like for C. Jessam and whatnot, to help kind of design these?
Yeah, so C. Jessam actually worked on this entire line. So he's worked on all the soft goods here. Yeah, so it's another awesome, awesome collaborator to work with. And so, yeah, he has had a chance to kind of put his hand on a good portion of this collection, because, there's a lot of hard and soft plastics, but then there's also, different cloth soft goods. We also have some kind of like leather material kind of capes that we've done, some different weathering on and things like that. So there's a really nice mix of, soft, hard, and soft goods throughout the collection that we've done. So it's been awesome to work with him. We have some other really cool ones coming that we have another soft good piece that you guys will be seeing very, very soon in some of our unlockables that we're going to be kind of doing some sneak peeks of coming soon. So one thing I wanted to also just throw out here as we're chatting, I see the Titan talking about, he said he's not a fan of multiverse stories due to the trap that they tend to fall into. But then he says the toys are very tempting. So if he wants to embellish, I want to know what that trap is, because I'm curious what he's alluding to, because I'm a curious person. So if he wants to, feel free to go on with that, and then we can keep chatting away here.
Absolutely. So Titan, please follow up with your question to kind of help us learn more about everything here going on. So with that, I kind of want to go through and say, you talk about the line, you talk about going from 3 characters to 15. So without kind of scrolling through the Kickstarter, I just kind of want to go through the characters we've seen so far from you guys and really just kind of go around the table here and just give our impressions of what we see, what we feel. And before I do that, I do have one question in regards to the combination of hard and soft goods. So with each figure, is there going to be a balance of soft goods and hard plastics or semi-hard plastics?
So throughout the entire collection, we have different combinations. And I just looked through, we have 8 characters that actually have soft goods. Some of them combined, multiple different types of soft goods or have multiple layers in their soft goods. So you do have like a pretty rich variety. And so, with the different hard goods as well, or hard materials, we also do different types of surfacing, different, hardness of that material. So you might have more of like a soft rubber versus a hard PVC. One PVC or different surface area might be smooth for like a metallic. Others, we spend a lot of time picking different surface texturing, whether it's for the armor or for imperfections in the skin or veins, different scratches or dents that go into the various pieces that they're wearing, weapons, etc. So yeah, you do get kind of like a variety of textures, not just in the sculpt, but also in the selection of paints that we use too, ranging anywhere from matte colors to, metallic, gloss, semi-gloss, etc.
Okay, great. Well, then let's just kind of go through the characters we have so far that we've been shown. And again, before we get that, I just want to say with this Kickstarter, you guys have been blowing through your goals to get up to being fully funded. I mean, I wanted to get a timeline from when we had from the 40% funded all the way up to, I think it was this weekend you guys announced a character, but also that you were at 80% and now you're over 80% funded at this point. So again, it's congratulations on it. And it's I think, as Matt was saying before, it's that transparency and openness and just being there for everyone to ask questions, to see what's going on and showing the behind the scenes stuff, that's why you're at over 80% right now. And that's why you will be funded in plenty of time here to reach these additional goals so Matt can get his figure.
Thank you.
So we kind of have a little snapshot here of, as you guys are saying, the main cast of characters going across here. And then we have the stretch goals across the bottom. And we'll kind of go through those as we go through. But again, this is where we see the combination of the available figures upon funding and then what is potentially available as these stretch goals are reached and surpassed. So we'll start here with the two figures you guys kind of had right at the beginning of the character list. And I'm assuming this is kind of like the whole, because we need to have some sort of, at least for 80s kids like myself, we need to have a good guy and a bad guy. And that's blue and red for me. So am I kind of seeing that with these two characters?
Yeah, the spite in our story are definitely, lean on the kind of some of our nemesis characters. And the Meld Master is one of the, we have a couple central figures, but that character specifically is kind of important to, our story. And, but yeah, we have a little bit of good and bad here. And excuse me. I was going to say, it's when we were designing some figures too, designing villains is a lot of fun. And so like you can kind of get lost wanting to create more villains than good guys sometimes, but then you just have this really evil, world and universe of characters. But I think we have a good balance in this collection. But yeah, that's a little bit around these characters, well, obviously going into all the different backstories, which, like I mentioned, if anyone who's just hopping in, on the Kickstarter, we actually maxed out the amount of characters you can write on a Kickstarter. So we had to condense these bios into very, very small bios, but we actually have, probably a page or maybe 2 pages of bio on each of these characters that we'll be unveiling over the coming weeks too. So people can kind of learn a little bit more about these backstories and how, maybe some of these characters are either, kind of related or, on what side of the aisle they fall on as far as good, bad, or neutral.
Okay, and that's what I pulled the information from for these slides in regards to the bio information that's with each one of these figures. So if you can't read it, guys, on the rewatch, that's why you just need to go to the Kickstarter and read this information, and then get a little more of the backstory through their through the motion comics on their YouTube channel. But I really kind of like the whole idea.
Hit that fun button.
There you go. Now, one of the things that was really cool, and you kind of mentioned it in regards to the build and coloring of the sprite usurper, but what you can't see here with Meld Master is it's actually a translucent plastic that you build from.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is a translucent, blue plastic. But what's kind of cool about this is we also added an additional paint application. So on the characters, which we call exoskeleton, it's kind of like a bone-like kind of chest and different arms and elbow areas. We kind of did like a white paint application that kind of has like a frosted look. So you still get the transparent look around the character, but also that extra kind of white paint application really pulls out, a lot of the sculpting design and detail. So I think where we landed with it, because when we originally actually had this character done, it was just clear blue plastic, and it was something I liked it. I have images of that too, but I wanted to see how we could, add more to that and really pick up on the detail, which, I don't think you could appreciate as much if it's just one solid clear plastic, because you can kind of, unless you're really close on it, you can't really tell. So I think where we landed, was a really nice mix of, the clear plastic and then, accentuating, kind of the details with the paint layer.
Okay. And one thing I like seeing with each one of these figures is something that, as we mentioned before, our friend T-Man 978 always critiques in regards to some of these action figure lines, is that you don't get a variety of hands, because not everyone walks around with trigger fingers or fists. So it's really cool to see that variety put into a character and a figure that will allow you, whether it's photography or just playing around, actually have that emotive sense. And the fact that there's that you have an alternate head for some of these figures, again, just another really cool bonus. and it's kind of with these two, it's kind of like that unique look where like Melon Master has this backpack, which is again as part of the bio and the storyline that you've been talking about with him. But just the ferocity and just the look of the usurper, whether he has the mask on or mask off, and just the tendrils or the hair, the close thing. I mean, that it's a really imposing figure, and I can see where you had a lot of fun getting that design through the process here.
Definitely.
Plus, I got to say, the value is there. I mean, from the size, the plastic, the paint, the amount of accessories. This is, while an independent figure, this is more than NECA is giving me for a figure of the same size. And probably this is better quality than a NECA figure. So, I mean, this is, for an independent figure, it is beating out a lot of domestic stuff you can buy. So that speaks volumes to me.
You know what's really cool too, that you're not really, I mean, you kind of saw previously where the Spike character was kind of disassembled in an earlier slide, but for example, with the Meld Master here, like those chest straps that go through, those are removable. The backpack's removable. The lower tunic and that entire belt section is removable. Both of the shin guards can pop off. The wristbands, the arm band, like all of that is removable. So it gives you a chance.
Me, Mark. You're spoiling me.
I think it'll be actually fun when people do get these in their hands. They're going to realize that there's a lot more kind of customizability than they may have even thought of. And so that allows, people to kind of, mix and match a bunch of different things, a bunch of different ways, or for customizers who, want to paint things and swap them on different characters. We definitely, thought about that. And with the Spike, same thing, like those bicep guards are removable, the knee, the shin guards, the belt, on one side, he has like a pauldron that can snap off and switch with other pieces. So there's definitely a lot of thought, kind of put into too on that. And I'm sure customizers are going to do things that we didn't think about and probably, add in their own pieces and, kind of build upon that. So that'll be fun.
Cool. Well, before I continue, and I don't mean to interrupt, I want to kind of show Titan did respond to you, Marco, and I don't mean to block your face with that. So, he talks about the bloatingness that can kind of happen when you deal with multiverse and time travel. I'm sure that the best example as he'll go through here is, the MCU is a perfect example of how things kind of MacGuffin their way to an ending.
I think first off, that's a great question, and it's also a great feedback. One of the things that obviously the story is being crafted, and we're working through a lot of different stuff. But I can totally feel and agree with what Titan's saying, where he's saying, if there's infinite numbers of characters, what does things matter? If there's no gravity to any situation, then you can just kind of keep this loop going on forever. And one of the things that I think that I've been, as I've been sitting with Jeremy and with Andy as we kind of develop through the story is this idea that there's multiple timelines happening, but where obviously what is happening in one has consequences, but there might be a future timeline that is having an effect on previous timelines, which kind of creates some very interesting paradoxes and some very interesting twists where each decision that a character has or that is happening, it has a magnitude of ripple effects that I think that enriches the story, and you can do some really fun stuff there to kind of create kind of some mind benders. And I come from yes, I love sci-fi, I love superhero stories, but I really love suspense and thrillers. And so how can we really create a rich story that is really intricate with multiple layers that is happening that isn't kind of your traditional multiverse story. And I think that's something that as we develop in the storyline further, I'm excited to kind of build upon and share with everyone. So I totally understand where he's coming from, and it's something that's in my head as well. I think that if you eliminate like you said, the gravity of situations, then there's really nothing really matters, right? Because you just know hey, this is next week there'll be some other event that flips this event back around, and then what does it matter?
Wells, if you ever watch the Flash.
How many times has Batman died and come back? There's always that situation that comes through with long-standing character worlds and whatnot. But it's good that you guys are considering that, and that kind of comes from, like you were saying before, your desire to build this world and have things make sense, you know.
Yeah.
And actually, with Eric Stream, I'd like to hold his question for now until we get later on.
He's gone. He's gone. It didn't happen.
Oh, you are still here, Eric Stream, so I'll get to you. So I like to move on to these next two guys, which I won't lie to you, the Voidwalker is one of my favorites.
Same.
And
100%.
I think this is one of those where you said it was a really good mix of hard and soft. And it's not that, you know, while he is a titular character, if you read the bio, it's an order. You know, there's not just one
army
Voidwalker.
builder.
There are a multitude of these individuals that travel through this world. So when you look at these figures through the design and the process now, is there what are your thoughts on them? Think about them. You know, are there still changes on the way with these characters?
Funny thinking about how far it's come, because this character is, you know, a lot of pieces and parts from kind of the original Nibiru collection of designs that we had. You know, the mask was one of those kind of prominent features. We really wanted to use that. We also had kind of those arms with the arm bone horns, but I think you also get to tell a pretty interesting story, you know, when you also have one arm that is more of like a robotic type arm, you know, and it adds a lot to the mystery behind this character. Kind of just shrouded in mystery too, and you don't really know who is he hired by, who's he working for, you know, or what alliance is he siding with. You don't know, and obviously we want to kind of roll that out as we go. But then, yeah, even some of the armor pieces. I remember that chest plate. It started off as this chest plate that we had that had a tube coming out of it, and it was actually quite different than it is now. But we didn't know, like, okay, it has this big tube on it. We probably can't do that if we're going to also have a cape with it, right? And so then you start to get more into kind of like the action figure design perspective that influences the character design, right? And so, you know, we took the tube off, but then we thought the chest plate was a little too standard or just too plain, and so we kind of had that completely redesigned. Even the pants too, we had kind of like a basic pant, but this is even the details into kind of like the stitching and the seams on the pants, the multicolored patterns and selections that we did for the palette. Yeah, Marko, I know this is one of your favorites too.
Yeah. This is, you know, one of my favorite characters. Someone asked me, like, okay, you know, you just got to tell me who's your favorite character in the collection. I said Voidwalker. You know, I do like this character a lot. You know, I also, you know, as we've been crafting, you know, background like storyline too, you know, I have a love for the character. But just from an aesthetic point, yeah, it's something that, you know, we went through a lot of different revisions of this character. I was just actually while he was chatting, I was trying to look through my computer and see, like, we had like what this first version of this character looked like. Yeah, the hood. Yeah, like even the hood was first like kind of just a standard hood that had kind of like a, I don't know, neck kind of section here, and then we're like, no, we wanted to add it with the cape. We also wanted the hood to have more of like a point to it, and you know, and we added kind of like the little bits of kind of like the kind of horn pieces, and so we kept adding to this figure. But I love that this figure too, you know, you can have it with the hood on. There's also, as you can see in that middle picture, there's actually another one that has like the hood where the hood is rolled down, so you could have the whole head shown. Then you have the character, you know, obviously the head, and then you have the mask on top of that. So, you know, there's you know, how you want to kind of display that. There's a bunch of different options. But I love the way this one kind of came together. You know, he's got these, you know, two really awesome blades.
Yes.
You know, you can have posed with that, you know, are quite large. So like from, you know, when you kind of have the full character posed with that, I think it'll look really awesome. But yeah, this character, and, you know, as Mike was mentioning, you know, kind of it's a member of this Order of the Void, which is this kind of, you know, mysterious kind of group of Nibiru that, you know, have figured out ways to travel through different space and time, and, you know, kind of have their own kind of covert missions going on throughout our story. But yeah, I love the way this one came out, and I think that this one will be I think it'll be really popular because everyone that I've talked to, you know, they keep like saying like, oh, I love the Void Walker character, I love that. So I could see this one being like a fan favorite.
All right. And another question I have in regards to Cyberus Kane, which again, his bio is kind of like a tragic kind of event that happens that leads him into this life of kind of like this revenge path. Now, the questions I have is that the piece there, that's a shield that he's going to have?
Yeah, so that's a shield, and it's actually the way the handle is made is it's on left and right. So if you wanted to have it in his left hand, you know, you could have the shield placed. By having the handle removable on both sides, you could pose it on the left side or right side. So it gives you some, you know, flexibility with, you know, how you want to potentially, you know, pose the figure. But yeah, that's a shield there.
All right. And then my second question is involving the blades. It looks like they're removable. So does that mean you could have, with each of the variety of hands here, you can attach those blades into any of those hands?
So yeah, so the way they're designed is to go with I think with the, you know, kind of the gripping hand. So you'd be able to use them, you know, with and obviously there's a left and a right. But if you only wanted to have, you know, kind of pose it with one of the blades, you could obviously, you know, choose how you want to do that. But, you know, the hands give, you know, we have a fist, we have kind of like the holding hand, we also have like a resting hand, and then kind of like the, I don't know why I keep calling it the action hand, but like the more, you know, dramatic kind of hand that's good for, you know, different posing depending on, you know, how you're displaying it.
Okay. And in light of time, I know, Mark, you have a hard stop. We'll kind of progress along here. These two guys, and again, one is touching on the first stretch goal, and Darkhelm is just, again, I think it's the use of hard and soft goods. Just another really awesome guy, and it's another variety. Reading the bio, it's another avenue altogether to the figures we've been looking at already, because this is more like now you got a space cowboy type of environment, especially with countering here with Quickjack, which is why I have these two guys together. That's just really creative. Yeah,
so the character on the right, Quickjack, you know, is part of this, what we call like the Alliance of Free Seekers, or, you know, as Andy calls them, retrieval specialists. And so, you know, part of, you know, Quickjack and kind of his crew of seekers, you know, has some backstory with Darkhelm and kind of, you know, their dynamic as far as, you know, how these kind of characters, you know, are in our story world. And, you know, another thing that we were asked in the past too is, hey, some of these characters seem maybe a little bit more primitive, or maybe, you know, have, you know, melee weapons, and some of them like Quickjack have, you know, much more advanced, you know, weapons. And so I guess kind of going back to, you know, how we've crafted the story, you know, there are kind of multiple timelines running concurrently. And so depending on where that character is from in the world, or maybe what timeline that character is from, you know, their accessories or what they, you know, have, you know, is kind of reflected in that. And so it's really a fun way too. It allows us to kind of, you know, create a lot of different variety in, you know, the accessories and weapons. So it doesn't all kind of feel, you know, like they're from, you know, the same small space, because we wanted it to feel much bigger than, you know, one very specific type of character where they all looked, you know, very similar or the same. And so, you know, that's kind of a little bit about why you kind of see that.
Okay. And one final thing in regards to Quickjack, and because it's the internet and everyone's been talking about it, he's actually a pretty decisive or divisive character in regards to the conversations, and that's merely with the deco. I mean, he's very bold. It's very, very eye-catching versus the figures we've been seeing so far that have had more of like as we see with Darkhelm, a muted kind of like mechanical, menacing look that we're kind of traditionally used to seeing, to Quickjack, and then his other partner in the team, that's another stretch goal. Again, another really brightly colored character. I mean, do you guys read some of that feedback? How do you take that? I mean, are there metrics you're gathering in regards to how the community is responding to you, both in the campaign and also with your comments?
Totally. It's a polarizing character. I think some people really, really love this character. And, I think we were very much inspired, by like, that 80s, I'm an 80s baby. So that kind of like and it had this like retro funky feel. And the character himself is supposed to be, a little bit more fun. And, I think, when we were going through different color and paint applications, Jeremy and I looked at this particular character, and there was a bunch of different options that we had, gone across, and not only on what we thought, the vibe of the character itself should have, but we both really, really love this style, and we know that like. Certain people are gonna, if you like darker, more menacing figures, then you're not gonna like like this figure. But we've actually the people who have like the people who like it love it, and the people who want something more serious, that's I think what's nice about this collection too is we've kind of tried to create something that there is a little bit of diversity, where if you like colorful, vibrant figures or something like this that's going to just really stand out on your shelf, we've kind of created that. And it also works to the vibe and the character himself. But then we also have stuff that is I guess on more serious tone. So for like the Pale King, for example, or Dark Helm, they're much more menacing, serious characters. But Quick Jack is one of my personal favorites, just because to me it's so different than anything I've really seen, and I think that like on a shelf it'll definitely stand out.
So with that, for this final question for this, unless Matt or Dave, you guys have a question with this line, with this line. And especially with Quick Jack as a perfect example, are we going to see with the deco kind of like a more metallic paint job on some parts of them? Are we going to see like with all the characters? Are there going to be a mix of like gloss and matte? How do you kind of put that design factor into play if that's going to happen?
No, yeah, totally going to happen. Each character, depending on the character, we do have, some paints that are more metallic and reflective. On the previous character, when we look at the Voidwalker, like there's a couple of the chest panels are painted in like a really, reflective metallic paint, where some of the other pieces are in a more matte finish. And I think it's the combination. So even in Dark Helm, there are pieces that are going to be matte. There's pieces that are going to be kind of bright metallic. Then I think that added with the soft goods, there's a lot of different texture and layers happening that I think that will make these characters really pop.
Awesome. That's what I love to hear. And what I also like to see is not only do we have main characters, but you guys are also putting in army builders. Now, in the initial wave, when funded, the Crimson Enforcer is going to be available to choose for backers, correct? Whereas the Prime is part of that first stretch goal with Quick Jack to be available. And what I kind of did here was incorporate some of the other add-ons that you guys were talking about in regards to the kind of the head packs, the hand and arm accessories, and then just additional weapons. How did you guys kind of come about on deciding these elements and their importance of being in part of the campaign?
Yeah, I like the spread, how you kind of aggregated this all together. It came together piece by piece. We didn't actually make the connection between all the different add-ons and everything until we kind of saw it all and was like, oh, it makes perfect sense. Crimson Enforcer actually was a different type of character / like color. And, one of the thoughts was, well, if we're going to allow people to build army builders, we have Prime, who's kind of this good guy. What would be a good counterpart to that for people who want to build, a more aggressive kind of like evil army builder or army made of army builders, right? And so the choice, came across. Marko was like, oh, well, we should try the red and black. It seems to be working for kind of like the Spite Usurper. Dark Helm, while not necessarily Spite, kind of has, some of that essence as well, more of like the black with the red accents. And so playing into that, it then started to influence, well, we already had the Forged pack and the Glow pack. Those had come earlier. And then we thought, okay, if we're going to do the head packs, well, we probably want to do a spite head pack because that plays into kind of our villain characters. And then what would be, a cool kind of like fun hero one was the translucent glowing head pack. And so, through kind of the process of sorting everything out, it actually just kind of emerged that, oh, well, now we have this soldier builder that has like a perfect match for heads, also has a perfect match for weapons on the add-on pack, but it also has parts and pieces amongst those things that could mix with quite a few of the pieces from the original collection, like the other characters. And then same thing with Prime, we have this glow head pack, we have the glow pack of weapons, and we have this body that also affords itself like a pretty good mix and match across kind of like the other half of characters.
Okay. And you guys stated in here, especially with the glow pack, and I know with the blue head pack, it has a glow in the dark element to it.
So that's going to be printed in a glow in the dark plastic as well. So it's not only translucent, but also will have glow in the dark features for that one. Also, same thing with the weapon pack on the right. We'll have glow in the dark elements as well as some of the blades are like a clear plastic blade that has like a blue glow in the dark edge. So there's kind of a combination of both there. Also, just adding, I see someone asked about the articulation. We covered some of that at the beginning, but if you go over to the Kickstarter, there's a video and a full articulation chart, so you can check that out. Up to 29 points of articulation, depending on the figure, and you can kind of look through it, and it has all that on there with a video that Jeremy made on the articulation breakdown. So feel free to check that out. Just wanted to kind of try to get to some of those comments as they're scrolling up higher.
All right. And again, all these add-on packs are going to be available no matter what tier, what stretch goal has been reached or not, right? If someone decides to back, they have the option to add these packs onto their backing pledge. So
definitely,
and go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to add also to Ray, talking about, he was asking too about, the higher tier unlocks and things like that. Like I said, we've definitely got a lot of interests on the collection, and we feel really confident that we're going to be able to unlock everything. So, our goal is to make sure all the figures are unlocked and that people get to choose what they want. And so, we're feeling really good of where we're at, not even just being a little over the halfway point in this, campaign. But I know that some people might want figures that are currently locked, or some want a combination of ones that are and aren't. And all I can say is that I think that we're trending in the right direction. And our goal is to make sure that they're all unlocked. We got to get Matt his Eternal Guard, so we'll make sure that happens. And so that's all I'll say right now. But I think we're going to be in a good spot for that.
Awesome. And along with all these different figures, we have also with Kickstarter, obviously for backers, an option to get this exclusive figure, the Gatekeeper. Now, I've read a little bit about this, and I also heard some other interviews you guys had about this guy. To say he's a strong silent type is the least I want to say now. But
thank God! I was afraid he'd be saying you're not a true fan unless you know this stuff.
No,
he's a chatty type.
Not a big talker.
So we're looking at your 15 characters in this line. What kind of process you guys go through to say, all right, number 7, you are going to be the special one, and how did Gatekeeper become that?
Yeah, this was actually really, really tough, and it did change a few different times. It's like, it was a difficult decision. I don't know, Jeremy, do you remember how we landed on Gatekeeper? I mean, like I said, I know like there was a couple different figures that we were looking at to do for the exclusive, but I'm trying to remember the thought process of where we landed on Gatekeeper.
Yeah, so Gatekeeper we had kind of on the side, and we weren't sure if we wanted to save it for after the Kickstarter or, include it in the Kickstarter. And so, I think it just was missing a few different pieces at the time. It didn't have the skull helmet, which I think this is the only character currently that has that helmet in the whole collection.
Yeah.
It also has kind of like the black and chrome paint job, which is also unique to this character. And, we added a few more components, swapped out, it has different shins and I think different forearms too. And so we really kind of just beefed this one up and wanted to make it as stacked as possible. And so then when we had it crossed with the other line, there were a few that we were talking about. It had crossed our mind, should QuickJack be the Kickstarter exclusive? Should Tiberius, I think, was one of the other ones, should Kale, and we want it to be one that we thought would be kind of like universally accepted, across all of the Kickstarter contributors, something that, hopefully everyone could resonate with, at least some bit, and so we saw it in the lineup. Yeah. And we figured, why don't we just go with this one? It looks loaded. I think people would love it as a Kickstarter exclusive. And so that's just how it ended up being.
It's a fantastic looking figure, and I can definitely see where you guys were saying that, the extra load, because I mean the chest, it looks like there are so many different layers of accessories added onto them. I mean, it really is indicative of saying this is something that really stands out amongst the line, and if you back it, he's going to be available for you.
Totally.
So, all right, we'll kind of go through these last couple bits, and these are kind of more of the unlocks. And again, if there's a cutoff time for you, Marko, please let me know, and we'll kind of
let's go through these. No, I definitely, I know we're
awesome.
kind of cruising through. Yeah, I don't want to just abruptly take off on you.
Oh, no problem. And well, so then going into these two unlocks, again, it's that dichotomy of like what collectors are going to have options in. Based with the Pale King, which you guys had talked about earlier, and Nexus as your other two stretch goals, and it's it's the variety of figures that you could have in your collection that is really cool. Because I mean, in the Pale King, I've heard some things in comments and in the community saying, oh well, that reminds me of a certain 80s character where his opponent wore a loincloth all the time, and Nexus reminds me of someone who has a little more red, a little more gold in his getup. So these are really interesting, and attainable figures. What do you guys want to say about these two? Especially with the Pale King, and he comes with 3 different types of heads, if I'm looking at that right, or is the Pale's head?
Yeah, he comes with the head, the mask, hood, and then the way this one was designed, the face, kind of the head can, if you have it with, we wanted to make it the mask where it kind of went all the way over the top of the head, but obviously that was going to be challenging if he also has a hood on. So the way it's designed is there's actually a mask that when you take the hood off, there's like a different kind of face mask that can go on that covers the top of the head, and then a second mask that you can put on that works with the hood up. So there's just a couple different ways, this character, but I love this character. This was one that when I was doing kind of our mood boards and putting together all these different pieces of kind of what that I was kind of presenting to, our concept artists and our sculptors, wanted to have this character be a little bit more, grungy. And so we did like a black wash over the entire character, which really pulled out all those details. And then C. Jessam did this soft good, which I think is my favorite piece of the collection, just because there's multiple layers of soft good, different materials. The print that's on the lower loincloth that's on black is like a reflective, like metallic kind of looking print that is kind of has all the different kind of symbols. And then on the lower left leg, there's like almost like a leather kind of material that has a different pattern. So there's a lot of different layers to this soft good. So I really, really like it. And, as far as from a storyline perspective, this character definitely dabbles into the, sci-fi and fantasy. There's a little bit of a mystical element to the character. And you can tell that a little bit too about the staff that he has. And where, when you look at the character on the right with Nexus, it's definitely more, artillery and technology kind of inspired or drawn from. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of a big difference on when you have these two characters kind of side by side as far as the overall, feeling. One is much more serious, and one has a lot more vibrant colors and kind of like that hot rod kind of red and gold kind of paint scheme. I don't know, Jeremy, take it away if there's something.
And also, Pale King also has a bit more of kind of like a fantasy, mysticism vibe, whereas Nexus is definitely high tech, more sci-fi vibe too. So yeah, it's, I think, a testament to kind of our approach. We really wanted a wide variety of characters, which also plays into the universe we're building. These characters can travel across different dimensions. They come from different worlds, maybe even different areas that have different laws of physics, or just how those worlds are governed. And for another example, completely different between Arcturus and Epsilon as well, right?
Yeah,
Arcturus
and I just
is more of a shamanic healer. Yep.
It's funny. If you go back one slide, Mike, I was
Sure.
going to say that the way that you had those two paired together, as soon as the slide came on, it made me think, if anybody here is an old StarCraft fan, it made me think immediately of Terran and Protoss. Like,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
You had me at old, so yeah, I totally agree with you.
It's so funny. You said from StarCraft.
yeah,
Yep.
I was a big World of Warcraft and then Command and Conquer guy, but I didn't play as much StarCraft. I think Jeremy plays StarCraft.
I played
right?
a ton of StarCraft. Yeah.
well, you guys
so
hit
totally
the like
Terran on
part of
the
the
right.
aesthetic here. Whether you meant to or not.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to
I
be
didn't play
over.
StarCraft because a 5-year-old Korean kid kicked my ass back in 2003.
Right.
Oh, see,
Probably a world
Now,
champion.
when you're advanced as I am and remember Command and Conquer on
Right.
your back when it was under Westwood Studios and you're sitting there.
Yes, Westwood Studios.
And then you're
Yeah.
like,
Curry was amazing in that game.
wasn't Mark Hamill in that too?
No, that was Wayne
He
Brady.
was
No. So who are you talking about? Who played the voice for? I can't remember who it was, but anyway, go on.
No, we had Tim Curry. I know Tim Curry was in Red Alert. He was one of the Russian generals.
Billy D. Williams was in it. Ric Flair was in
we can
it.
go.
Sorry.
We can go
Sorry.
all through all this stuff.
Yeah, right.
We're going to keep on going here. Again, these two are your next stretch goals. And we had not known about Epsilon until this weekend, guys. So thank you for releasing this hidden character.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a little bit of the same thing with, I'm going to butcher his name, but Arcturus?
Arcturus, yeah.
Okay.
Arcturus and Epsilon, yeah. Arcturus probably falls more in the, again, in the more fantasy, kind of end of the spectrum in our story. Kind of like this shamanic healer, and kind of where Epsilon, again, another one of the free seekers. So you'll see, has more vibrant colors, more sci-fi, weapons, and this character is more of like a marksman, where we kind of had in the group of seekers, we have kind of like our heavy artillery, rocket launcher on the shoulder, or with quick jack like a minigun. This character has a really beautiful kind of like long range kind of sniper weapon. It's got the the helmet, and yeah, so two different ends of the spectrum again, but again, just kind of having a lot of different, I guess, diversity throughout the collection.
And I love the design of Epsilon. I really do. Especially, I mean, I can only, that soft goods. That's a question I'm sure, I don't even know why Matt didn't ask, but all the soft goods, are we going to have wired ends with them?
So some of them do, depending on, the piece, so for like Darkhelm, he has, wired cape, larger pieces. On some of the things like Arcturus, it's a smaller kind of like lower, like half cape. So that one is, kind of more in like a leatherish material, where, there's also some characters like Obsidius, who we haven't revealed yet. It's going to be much more heavy on, soft goods. And as we kind of unveil that, I'll talk more about it. But, so there is some, here and there. I see Jeff asking, does Arcturus glow in the dark? Yes. So actually, that is something that's really cool about this character, is the character is actually printed in a glow-in-the-dark plastic. So some of them have glow-in-the-dark paints, but this is actually a glow-in-the-dark plastic. So those hands will glow.
Glow.
There's also some really cool kind of pieces on the face mask. So kind of part of our story too, there is, kind of these different kind of stones that have some different, kind of properties and art and the Genesis stone and other artifacts in our story world. And so he kind of has these stones that are imbued inside the mask that kind of also give him some abilities. And also at the end of the staff, that whole staff is printed in a clear blue plastic, but then the entire thing is painted except for just that gem at the end. So you'll have a translucent, clear, like glow in the dark, blue gem at the top of the staff, and then like the rest is kind of in a wood grain kind of paint. So really excited for that one. I think people are really gonna enjoy that.
Awesome. And now we're gonna kind of close out here on the stretch goals, and these two characters we've kind of been talking about off and on, but you did bring up Obsidius. So what can we not know and until you decide to tell us? I mean,
he's got a scythe.
Yeah, the dread scythe.
So
really cool.
all I can say is that very, very soon, I think we will be doing a big reveal here of Obsidius. It might be even later this week. I don't know for sure, but this was.
You don't want to do it on the show? You can do it on the show if you want.
Put me on the spot.
No pressure, but
You're good.
It's coming really, really soon. I promise. But yeah, this one we're super excited to unveil here very soon. Eternal Guard. Matt said his favorite. Which kind of features this giant wingspan, and what's really cool about that one is all of those different sections of the wing articulate, so you can fold them in and kind of show it. With wings folded in, obviously, fully extended like how it is in this image. You could take the wings off completely if you want to. Those pop off as well. And what's kind of nice that you can't tell in this photo is there is a bit of a curve to the wing. So they don't curl completely around the figure, but they do have kind of a slight kind of bend and curve into them. So it kind of gives it a more dynamic, look than just, I guess, like a flat, kind of wing. But yeah, this one was one of the first characters that we, what I mentioned earlier when we were working with Four Horsemen. This was one of the first designs that we had presented them with, this with the Spite and Voidwalker. And so this one has been a long time in the making. And we went through many different paint applications to get here and choosing the right type of gold. And can we see it with a lighter gold and a darker gold? And, kind of this combination of like an ivory gold and, some charcoal elements to it. Yeah.
Cool. So with your line and with all the characters, again, we already know they are all a 7-inch scale. But when I saw this render, my thought was like, oh, is he going to be bigger than the rest? Because he has, I mean, not just because of the wings, but just the scale of him. He looks like he should be a much grander, bigger figure. Will he tower over the other figures in the line?
Yeah, so from a scale perspective, it's similar to the rest of the collection. Obviously, with the wingspan, and if you have it on the shelf next to another figure, this is going to feel much like it's towering over that character because of the wingspan. But it's still at a 7-inch scale. But yeah, like Jeremy just said too, you throw in like the horns, and that makes it feel a little bit taller. Then you throw in a wingspan on top of that, and that might sit. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to misquote, maybe like 9-10 inches or something, when it's fully,
Wow.
And then on top of that, put the accessories in its hands. Like that battle axe is huge. In the image, it's obviously tilted on its side, but it's pretty large. And the shield is also pretty sizable too.
Yeah. I think the shield is actually, is massive. I remember when we were going through, the accessories, we this is where we worked a little bit closer with Four Horsemen on going back and forth on the design. And when they originally made that shield, I was like, oh, that's an amazing shield. And I saw it at scale next to the figure. I was like, oh my God, it's just massive. There's a massive shield, and like the Warhammer is, I don't know, I mean, probably like 4 inches. So it's like when you have this character posed with shield, Warhammer, the wings out, it's gonna be pretty dominating compared to especially like a soldier or like an army builder, right?
So with that statement, and looking at the size, you're saying about the size in that, how are we, is there going to be a concern with collectors after a while with like the tolerances if you have both the shield and the Warhammer? I mean, can you get him in a pose where he can have it over his head and it's going to stay? Or, how is that going through your head? Like, all right, I want to make sure that the elbow
Longevity.
joints are rock solid, where if someone puts it in a pose and he's holding that shield up to block, it's not going to come down, no matter how many times you manipulate that. So
yeah, Four Horsemen has done some pretty epic characters with, large accessories, large kind of presence. And so once again, we leaned on them too, to make sure. I'm not sure. I think they might've had to modify the feet or something too, to also make the base of it more sturdy as well.
Okay.
And so we lean on them actually too, to help balance the character and make sure that any of the demands on the joints are going to be able to stand up.
Right, especially with the pop and swap customization, of these figures, something like that, where if you have these very heavy pieces in their hands, after you kind of customize things out and put them back, that's something I'm going to be hoping, we'll have it figured out through the design and through once we get these figures released.
Totally.
Yeah, and like Jeremy was actually just mentioning too, there's been different pieces or parts where, even, on some of the weapons, there is some modular components to them. And so where we make those modular, they have to be at, strong connection points where we've like, hey, let's go back and make sure that area is reinforced. So if someone's swapping things, it's less likely to, have any issues. Or if you're designing, pieces, making sure that it can be held and like you're saying too, that the balance on the weight is there on certain stuff. So it's definitely, things that, we have leaned on too with Four Horsemen on kind of making sure that those, are able to be posed, the way collectors want to, and that they work out.
Okay.
I see also, that was exactly the question I just saw. Any consideration to adding skin membranes to the wings? So actually, it's interesting. On this particular version of the character, we haven't, but we have actually talked to a few other people who had mentioned something similar, and I think it's something that we're definitely open to potentially in future variations. Not something that we're going to offer with this particular one, and I think it's to how we design the articulation and the movement of these. Becomes trickier as you add in more plastic or that membrane. Then you're kind of going to get one pose, and so it's this trade-off of, do you want to have more posability, or do you want to have one specific look that you can have? But all I can say is I'm definitely up for, as we move through the collection, as we make, future variations, and, I'd love to be able to offer things like that where people could, even just get, an extra accessory and remix the character in a way that they like to have that. So definitely a good question.
Yeah, Mariano is one of our dedicated viewers every Thursday, and he always comes out with these really interesting questions. Mariano, check the replay, because earlier in the show we talked about there's some different races that are part of this world. So if you back it, we get more waves. We'll start seeing some of these, and maybe, as Marko was saying, these considerations can come into play. So that's
also just want to give a shout out to JB. He is the sculptor that has been working with us for years. He's the one who actually sculpted the Eternal Guard. So shout out to JB. He's a very talented guy, and he's been with us from the beginning. So it's been awesome.
And I'll touch base on this. This is another stretch goal you guys were talking about earlier, and it's the whole idea of including technology into how we view our figures, how we play with them, and kind of like adding a new way for people in this new techno-oriented world to kind of interact with these figures and their collectibles. Oh, sorry, forgot to have a sound.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of our vision for what the future of collectibles could be. Obviously we love to see our action figures on our desks or on our shelves. But how can we give it life beyond that? And I think everyone has a phone in their hands these days. VR headsets already exist. AR headsets, mass adoption just around the corner, right? Apple's kind of shown that with their Vision Pro. Next year will probably be the consumer model. So we understand where kind of like the future of storytelling is headed, right? Immersive experiences and leveraging technology to kind of enhance your collections. And so, we thought, wouldn't it be amazing to point your camera at your action figure, or, look at your toys on your desk and see them come to life, kind of like you see in the movies, right? With what was the movie, Small Soldiers, or
Yes.
even Toy Story, right? For the kids, or like that sense of magic, right? Yeah, seeing your toys come to life, that's the dream. And so, how can we make steps towards kind of making that dream a reality? And so that for us is what the augmented reality demo is. For those who haven't seen it, we have the demo on the Kickstarter. There's also the character viewer as well, which is kind of like a stepping stone to bridge that gap as well.
Oh, and Joy Deep is actually here in the chat. So, hey,
nice.
Awesome job for everything, man. So who was the voice talent for that demo that you showed there with the Void Walker?
Void Walker.
I'm sorry.
That was Marko did that.
So that's a combination of something I created, and then I ran through a bunch of different analyzers, and added some digital extras to that for that kind of narration. And part of that too is I think, which is really fun, is wanting to kind of build out these like really intricate kind of backstories where you're kind of being narrated this character's backstory, and taking that one step further. I think in the future, as if we can build onto that, I think there's a lot of really cool things that you could do, especially with emerging technology. Imagine interacting with an action figure, and through some of these kind of new AI tools and things like that, where it reminds me of like Westworld, where like you have this digital character that you could almost even speak with and have a conversation with and learn about its lore like firsthand. It's like kind of like meeting your superhero like in the digital realm. So that's just something that is something that would be a lot of fun to explore. Obviously with all of these, they're that's why we have them kind of. Our first goal was to make sure that we got the action figures out to the world, and as if we hit these later goals, and we can start to play around with the tech side of things and adding that to what we offer right away. And I think it's something that we'd love to explore down the line, regardless of stretch goals or not in the future, just because it's something that's really unique and different. But obviously you need to have the funding goals to kind of bring these things to life, because there's a lot on the tech end side of things that a lot of development that has to kind of go into that. But just a really cool kind of feature that in addition to the augmented reality, also being able to give these digital files to other artists and creators where they could create their own animations with, or new pieces of art. And so kind of just giving more tools to the community. Obviously the customers are going to do it in the physical realm, but and you guys see it all the time. There is so many talented toy photographers who are doing all sorts of extra, stuff in Photoshop and, kind of the digital side that are just making these characters look awesome. So being able to say like, hey, now that I own this action figure, I can also get the digital files. Like I could, it's a fully 3D, rigged character. So essentially it's like I could use it in this Zoom call, and I could be my character in the Zoom call. Like we've actually done it. We have these characters. We've done Zoom calls where I am like one of these characters, and it's hilarious, and it has full facial rigging, and so there's a lot of just fun stuff you can do with that stuff. And we've hopped into virtual reality before with these figures and or with these models, and tested that stuff out. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do that if we get to those kind of areas, that be fun to explore, and I think it'd be fun for the community just to play around with.
I cannot wait to photograph this figure. I have to tell you that right now. I cannot wait.
And to Dave's point too, is like the toy photographers do half the selling for you guys. I mean, that for any toy line,
right.
Pro companies and you guys can put out all the promo materials you want, but at the end of the day, when when those really good photographers get the figures in their hands, man, they make magic, and it sells it for you.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys are probably all familiar with Trevor Williams, 1/6 shooter. We worked with him on the prototype images that you see right now. We're going to do another round of images with him, in the future when we get the fully articulated, models. We've also had some chats with Sir Dork, who does a lot of really awesome toy photography. If you follow his channel, he incorporates a lot of like smoke bombs and all sorts of really cool kind of other, elements that are there in the physical, world, as well as, so gonna, collaborate with, I'm sure a few, multiple kind of toy photographers just to kind of see, because I think everyone adds their own flair to it and, different style of toy photography.
That's great. And actually, go ahead, Dave.
I was say I just got one question for both of you guys, and I'm not gonna. I know we're short on time. It's a really quick question. This goes to both of you. This is something that's kind of from all this stuff. Name me 2 toy lines that you guys both collect. I'm curious what action figures. What action figures you guys have? I just need 2. I'm not saying your 2 favorite. I'm not saying the end all be all, but just an idea of what you feel. I mean, because you're adding to this world of our hobby. What makes you into this world of our hobby?
Yeah. Well, earlier today I picked up one of the Figura Obscura pieces, so I'm adding in there. The Four Horsemen stuff is definitely. I love a lot of the stuff that they've made, so I've been looking at that. I've been following there's 2 that I've been following very closely. I haven't got a chance to purchase either of them just because they're at really high price points. But there's one that's called Takara, which is like a Gundam style action figure that also incorporates like LEDs and is like fully lit up. And these things are like wild. They go for a few $100s a piece. And then there's another collection that's been on my eye that's called J&D Collection. And these are not articulated figures. They're like hyper realistic, more collectible models. And they did like a Wonder Woman just recently. They did like an old Superman. When I say old Superman from the Christopher Reeves Superman. But these figures, if you look out on Instagram, you type in J&D Collection, it is like, I mean, they literally look like, when I first saw it, I thought it was just a picture from a movie. I mean, they're so incredibly detailed, but they retail for like $1,500 a piece. So they're like really wild, but it's kind of one of those like bucket list kind of pieces that I want to eventually add to my collection.
Okay. Jeremy, what's your 2?
For sure, Mythic is one, just kind of like the OG. Obviously, we've been working with them. I got this guy actually on my desk, just like decked out with his at the Valak.
Dude,
got him too. Yeah.
I got him this weekend, man. Valak is so awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome how posable and swappable they are.
Have you taken off the chest plate yet and tried swapping that out with anything?
Not yet, no. No, I like taking off like the shoulder guards and the hoods and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Now his soft good, and I'm going on a tangent real quick. I'm sorry. This is the kind of the soft goods I'm hoping we're not going to get as much of, because I don't know if you noticed, after a couple of times pulling the pauldrons off and on, the holes at the top of the cape kind of started raveling a little. So I want to be a little more careful with that. But let's not have that with our figures, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, adding extra threading around those different pieces too. I know exactly what you're talking about too. With that, it can, if you're moving them on and off. But it's all things too. It's good to like, and that's why I think it's good too when you're looking at all these, because then you can also just make mental notes, right, of like different things that you either want to improve upon or maybe customize and change.
Well, to close out on the augmented reality, the only thing I can think of is which character in this line is someone going to put Samuel L. Jackson's voice against. But that's kind of
Morgan Freeman.
Yes,
that's the other. The classic narration.
That's going to be the internal guard.
Yeah.
So that kind of closes out on the slideshow, guys, and hopefully it didn't drone on too much here, but I think it was it generated a great conversation. And this is kind of summarizing everything we've talked about tonight, and it's all available on the Kickstarter, guys. So if this is a little small to read, that just entices you to go onto the Kickstarter, read this information. Like we said, there's 15 characters that's going to be in this wave. Yes. Back
Matt
it up
needs his
because we have,
figures. Back to Kickstarter.
you know,
I
and
need
we're
my
talking
figures.
about a lot of things with articulation, up to 29 points, similar to what we have with Mythic Legions, thanks to the Four Horsemen Studios helping with the engineering. You guys are building this story in this world. So, I mean, a lot of people we have in chat and a lot of the regulars we have on our channel, we are nostalgia fiends. There's a lot of Transformers, a lot of G.I. Joe fans in our community. So that's one of the challenges I think you guys may have to face, is that there is some hesitancy among any community, no matter what it is, of starting something new, because some people are going to say, well, these figures are great, but I have no attachment.
Yeah.
So that's where I have to challenge those of us that are watching this, you know, live and on the replay. This is a chance to come in and make new memories. You know, we've all gotten older over the time, and now, you know, as you can tell, you know, at least for me, my son's 18 now. He never really grew up playing with a lot of these toys because of his history and how he came with us. So this is an opportunity to really kind of create your own world, and you can start with that by helping back this Kickstarter, and let's get it funded. Again, you guys talked about the different types of materials that are going to be with this guy. And if you've touched Mythic Legions or Cosmic Legions, you know that there's the Four Horsemen they're not joking with the materials, especially with the idea of customization. They build the stuff that is going to last. It's not going to be coming apart real easy. It's not going to be falling out. For those of us in the Hasbro line, at least with what I had, there's no gummy weapons or accessories unless it's made to be pliable. So that's a definite bonus. So to kind of go through here and give a snapshot, most of the figures that you have in this first wave, if you back one, we're at $37. Is that correct?
So they start at $39, but as
okay.
you go to the three pack, there's a discounted price, so you're getting a better price on 3 than obviously 1. And with each tier that you go up, there is a savings. And obviously the Kickstarter in general is going to be cheaper than, you know, retail price. So obviously the best, you know, value is on the Kickstarter. You know, just kind of also, I'm going to answer a few questions I saw kind of come throughout the last hour. You know, our main focus right now is the Kickstarter. So that's the only place you're going to be able to find these figures right now. Obviously, after the Kickstarter, you know, we do have, you know, other retail interests and things that will, you know, go down that road. But, you know, this is going to be the only place you can get them right now. The pricing is going to be the best that you can get them. It's going to be here on the Kickstarter. And kind of talking a little bit, too, on, you know, what you were just alluding to, Mike, with the, you know, the IP that maybe you grew up with. You know, one of the things that is so important to us is the character development and the lore development of the story. And because, you know, and that's really why, you know, we've decided to team up with someone like Andy, is to kind of be able to create that emotional connection through stories and through, you know, the backstory of these characters, and, you know, and hopefully through, you know, more, you know, ways of storytelling, whether that's through augmented reality or motion comics or animations. You know, we definitely want to explore a lot of those different things, and, you know, be able to you know, continue to the storytelling, which is like a really, really big part for us, you know, and that's why we didn't just kind of create, you know, a bunch of characters just on their own. We really wanted to be able to kind of craft a story and kind of create, you know, this, you know, new universe of, and that you know, this whole project is really based around.
Okay. And that was kind of leading up to some of the questions I had, and you actually kind of addressed one, is like, are you guys planning ahead for the next step, which is you guys will be funded? You're looking at, again, you mentioned some retailers. I know things like Fresh Monkey Fiction, they're exclusive to BBTS, and that kind of pigeonholes them a little bit in regards to getting their figures out as much as possible. So when you say you're looking at it, you know, a variety, that's a good indicator for, at least for me, saying, all right, if I back my set here of what I want, you know, and now we're going to go out, do I have to go and wait for BBTS, and whenever they get their stuff is when they finally go out? Or are you mixing it with a lot of smaller smaller retailers that are either online or brick and mortar. I'm kind of friends with the two guys. Well, I say friends, or acquaintance with them from Hello Dope Toys. They're a small, new online retailer, but they have been very successful so far. Then you have Big Nerdy. You guys were on with him earlier.
Absolutely.
Or
Yeah.
late last
He has
month.
his
So
online shop as well. I think that we want to be as accessible and open to as many, smaller retailers as possible. We haven't done anything exclusive. I mean, the Kickstarter is the only exclusive, which is Gatekeeper. But we haven't, where we want to be able to make sure that, they're available in as many places as possible. So it's something that we've also thought about too, is, as we move into that next stage, where we'll be able to, showcase these figures in different spaces and kind of keeping options open. We've had a chance to talk to a few different people, and so yeah, I think we're just taking it one step at a time. And right now, I guess all the focus has just been on the Kickstarter. So it's like, obviously dealing with what's right in front of us, and making sure that we have a extremely successful campaign, that we unlock all the figures here. And that's like, step one. But, after that, we're definitely going to, have, I'm sure a few different discussions and try to see, where's the best spot to be able to, have these figures. But we're definitely open to that. And, I think then the next step too is, expanding upon, what we've built here, and, thinking about, future collections, or, other accessories or vehicles, or all the other kind of things that, we want to include, in the future.
Okay.
Yeah, and for us too, with the big focus on the Kickstarter, it doesn't just stop. We understand it doesn't just stop once the Kickstarter ends, right? Once we're fully funded and have everything unlocked, we also want to make sure that we fulfill everything, that we promised for the Kickstarter, and make sure they're getting their action figures first. Make sure that we're doing our best to Q&A the final action figures before they, leave the manufacturer, before they leave distribution. So, making sure that all of that is solid, before we kind of like overextend ourselves, right? We want to make sure to deliver on the Kickstarter the best possible action figures we can.
Great. And that's I think that's what everyone loves to hear, is just that open, honest, and transparent way we're going through. And I highlighted T-Man's statement here because, again, you guys are getting a lot of attention, and that's awesome. And the fact that you came on with us tonight, we're definitely a very small channel, but we have a very dedicated fan base on our end. And I know later on this week you're going to be with another friend of ours, Cato's Collections.
Oh, cool.
His channel is huge, and he is a fantastic guy. You guys will love sitting down with him. I mean, I'm excited. I'm going to catch it as well. I was trying not to watch everyone else.
Great guy.
Yeah, I didn't want to watch everyone else because I didn't want to repeat questions. Because as Dave said, maybe there's just one question, but like, so Jeremy, how's it feel to be a toy person? And then you roll your eyes and like, well, it's like this yet again. But I appreciate the openness you guys had, and please thank Jeff for answering that Instagram message weeks ago. Because it's like kind of invigorated me to kind of do things like this.
I just want to say thank you. It's awesome. I think that there's a lot of really passionate communities, and so like having a chance to chat here with you guys and with your community, and with Big Nerdy and his community, and it's just been a lot of fun as we have a chance to kind of sit down and also hear more about what people are liking, and what are the you get just a variety of different questions. And so it's the whole thing too is it's a great learning experience and fun, just to sit down here and talking figures. So it's not the worst thing in the world.
And
Thank you
if I remember
very much.
Yes, absolutely. And the next thing is, I know we've been talking about the Kickstarter and everything. You guys are going to be at Legions Con. You guys are going to have a table at Legions Con here this November.
We got an exclusive. I do have some exclusive news we can drop here on the channel.
Well, hold on. Let me stop my screen here and give you control if you wish.
So it's just an announcement, but we actually just got invited to be at Comic-Con New York to bring out the prototypes, and we're going to actually be flying Andy Lanning out from London He's going to be there doing a signing. So we'll be doing signing at the booth. We'll have the prototypes on display. If you guys want to come with your, whether you want to get, Legendari stuff signed. Obviously, if you have some Guardian stuff you want to get signed, come on down. We'll be posting all the information around that, as far as, where we're going to be at, signing times, all that good stuff. But this is the first official talk of that. And my marketing guys are like, "You're crazy. You're always throwing, you're always dropping stuff." But yeah, so we're super excited. And then the following month we'll be at Legion's Con as well. And so we're going to have the prototypes out there. We'll have a chance to meet, so many, people from, the community that we've had a chance to already build a relationship with, and obviously so many new people and backers who are going to be most likely at, one or two of those events, or maybe both. I think people who are like in the New York, Jersey area try to probably get to as many events as possible. But yeah, we're going to be at both events over the next 2 months. So
guys, I love hearing that, because Legion's Con is going to be my very first Mythic Legions convention. So I want to be able to go up there and shake you guys' hands. So I can't wait. I can't wait to see this, and hopefully we can do kind of like a little follow-up during that weekend. Once everything's funded, you guys, it's just going to be really cool. And I'm excited to be part of Legion's Con, just as a first time, wide open, to be overwhelmed by all the customization and all the different conversation, and seeing just the beautiful work that these talented people have for sale.
You're gonna love it, and I think this year is actually pretty cool, because they did a much larger venue than where they were at last year. So it's a bigger venue, and from what I was just told actually on a previous podcast, that they built, there's the hotel or event, they also have there's an Irish pub that apparently they actually deconstructed an Irish pub from Dublin and moved the entire thing into the lobby of this hotel. So we'll have to enjoy, maybe a pint of Guinness or something at the end of the night. Who knows?
Absolutely. I remember Trevor was kind of talking about that with one of his streams with Bill from Dork Lair and whatnot, as they go through their series, The Road to Legion's Con. So I'm really excited to see all this stuff. So yeah, I guess what we'll do is kind of wrap things up. We're over 2 hours. So again, thank you both for the extra time. I really treasured it. But everyone, go ahead, go to the Kickstarter. I forgot to mention that the Kickstarter ends October 15th at 8:32 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you have we're 20 days left, 21 days left. So there's plenty of time to go through the information. Thank you.
19.
Plenty of time to go through everything on the Kickstarter. Check out MetaTravelers' YouTube channel to get some of the backstory that we've been talking about through the motion comics. And really, follow you guys on all the socials. I mean, you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook. What else are we missing here?
Yeah, those are the big ones. Instagram, Facebook. Oh, go ahead, Marko.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more too about MetaTravelers and the backstory, we have our YouTube as well. MetaTravelers is the name there. And if you have a favorite, feel free to drop it in the comments. We'd love to see. We love hearing what characters people like, and other things they want to see in future collections too.
Great.
Well, I like the hashtag.
Well, guys, I really, really appreciate it. This has been, like I said, this has been a fun time. And to everyone in the chat, thank you for your questions. Thank you for your interaction. I think not only does that help move the conversation along at times, but it kind of helps you two, I think, get an idea of where the community is at in regards to this campaign, and what things could be that one missing question that's now answered, that says, okay,
now I'm
I'm
ready.
now backer
100%.
300 and something like Dave has.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your time. I hope you have many more successful interviews and streams leading up to the October 15th timeline. And I definitely wish you the best of luck.
Yep,
And
you guys will bring it home.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the prototypes this November. And I'll let you guys have the closing thoughts here.
Me? Okay, so yeah,
Marko, Jeremy,
first
please.
off, guys, thank you guys.
You're the
so much.
important ones. Nobody cares
No,
what we say. You guys.
this was honestly a lot of fun. I'd love to do a follow up, with you guys in the coming months, as we get through, the Kickstarter campaign and as we start to kind of be able to, show more, images and updates on the production process. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, so thanks. I appreciate all the kind words, and you guys have an awesome community, super passionate, and a lot of great questions. So, yeah, it was really very enjoyable. So I definitely, like I said, and Mike, I don't know if Matt, if you guys are going to be at either Legions or Comic-Con, but Mike, I look forward to seeing you in person, and we can talk more figures.
Fantastic. I love it. And get I'll ask you guys what shirt size you want. I'll get you your adjoining Edgar Allan Poe shirt to go with your Mask of the Red or Mask of the Red. Yeah. Your new figure.
And everybody in the audience, thank you for joining us. Please make sure to hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Hit these guys travelers over at these guys web pages at MetaTravelers on YouTube. Junkion Crafts and Collectible. I can never say your name right.
It's all falling apart here.
It says it right there too. Junkion Crafts and Build.
we shot our load now, guys.
Sorry.
No, but yes, again, if you guys didn't know, I have a channel, Junkion Crafts and Builds. Dave has his channel with True Star Screamer. We've mentioned some of the other fans or other co-hosts we have on the Figure Action podcast. So thank you guys. And for everyone who is subscribing to us, we really appreciate it. But mostly it's listening to you guys and having these conversations because we all love our plastic crack. And you guys are going to give us a new line that we're going to have to find space and populate them and go on from there because it's going to be a super successful line. And I'm so excited to be part of it. So that's kind of where we have things to wrap up. So everyone, thank you very much for watching episode 5 of Figure Reaction, and stand by for our next one here. Everyone have a great night.
The rest of you guys on
Have a great evening,
Thursday on
everybody.
Figure Action.
We'll see you.
Good night.
Bye, guys.
Good night, everyone.